Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters, our programme that brings you the very best of France 24 from around the world. Now, being British, I'm the butt of many a joke here about the weather, how it always rains in the UK and how France is usually bright and sunny. This year it's the French who perhaps would like their weather a little more à l'anglaise. Many parts of France are already suffering from drought. 80% of reservoirs are reportedly running low, and almost half of France is under restrictions such as hosepipe bans and, of course, restrictions from filling your swimming pool if you're lucky enough to have one. As ever, though, it's the farmer who's been worst hit. Crops can't grow if there's no water. Animals can't be properly cared for. Some of those, sadly, are having to be culled. Well, our report comes from a region of France already struggling to cope. France 24's Rabat Zanoun has been to Charente, where the farmers are praying for rain.
Chabanais is a village in the heart of the Charente region. At 7 in the morning, like every day, Bernard Michaud takes care of his cattle.
I take a look at the cows to make sure they were okay during the night, but they're not very happy about having only straw to eat.
But straw is all this farmer can offer to his cattle, since 4 months ago drought began in the region.
Normally they eat grass, but there's so little around that I have to give them hay. But really, they shouldn't just be eating hay.
Bernard Michaud has been here since 1979. In February this year, his son Nicolas joined his operation. This morning, he's changing the animals' bedding. Normally, he would use hay, but this year, because of a lack of resources, he's been forced to add sawdust to the bedding.
You can see we don't have any straw, so we have to put down sawdust. We're missing straw and other food that we would have had if it had rained.
If nothing else, the mixture of sawdust and straw will at least allow the animals to sleep in the dry. For Michaud's family, the first victims of the drought are the cattle.
How are you doing, Mark?
I'm okay, making do.
Good, that's good.
We're still waiting for the rain.
Bernard Michaud breeds Limousin cattle. His stock is made up of about 200 animals, and he produces quality beef and has to ensure his cattle are impeccably presented. But he's faced with having to sell them more cheaply. Last year they would go for €3.50 a kilo, and today the figure is closer to €3 a kilo.
Bernard, we're going to have problems.
Why?
Because of the sawdust.
What's the problem?
We'll end up with dirty animals and they'll be worth less.
For the moment, the sawdust is not sticking.
Well, you know, the sawdust is already starting to stick to their knees, their hocks, their buttocks. It won't be long before they're dirty.
Marc Thibault is a cattle buyer in a farmers' cooperative that Michaud belongs to. His job is to buy animals before they head to the abattoir. As a result of the lack of food, Michaud is having to get rid of his animals quickly.
Well, I really hope they go as soon as possible.
Drought has an impact in terms of the number of animals we sell. It has increased significantly. So there's an immediate decline in price. The second result, and that's harder to measure, is that we spend a lot of time listening to people and their issues. Today farmers are in trouble.
Michaud has faced difficult times in his 32 years farming, not least mad cow disease. But this year's drought is proving particularly hard.
I'm worried about the lack of food, but what I'm really worried about is the lack of money to buy food. There are times when I wake up at night wondering how we're going to get through the year.
We're all going to take a hit, but some are not going to make it, that's for sure.
To feed his cattle, Michaud has 240 hectares of grassland. Normally, he produces 600 bales of hay per year. This year, he didn't even make 200. But some farmers are profiting from the situation. In 2010, Michaud bought bales of hay for €100 a tonne.
It's not even worth buying hay. It costs 250 to 300 euros a tonne. 3 tons of hay are the price of a cow. We know we'll need 1.5 tons of hay per cow during winter. That means the money I could earn selling a cow, I will spend it buying hay. It's impossible. We have to find cheaper solutions.
This hay is normally kept as food for the winter, but this year it's likely to be used up by the end of summer. When Nicholas joined forces with his dad, he had no idea his career would get off to such a rocky start. At the beginning of the year, he bought 19 cattle, and 2 months later, the drought kicked in.
For 3 years we've suffered from drought, so we've had to eat into our stock supplies. There's no more stock, there's nothing. Treasuries are at rock bottom, so there's no cash to buy food.
The fields may be green, but the earth is completely dry.
They've eaten a month ago, and there's less now than before. It's not growing back. It's green, but there's no grass. And so in 2 days, even 1 day, it's eaten.
A few meters away, Michaud takes care of another herd. Normally, they'd be free to roam the field, but the drought has forced him to ration how much grass they can eat.
Well, they don't have enough, I realize that. But if I give them more, there won't be any left for later.
Every 2 days, he moves the fence a few feet, so he can be sure the grass is completely eaten.
This grass is not very good, because it's hard. It should have been harvested about 2 weeks ago. Oh well, it feeds them, it fills their stomachs. And I continue to hope it's going to rain this autumn.
Another day gets underway for Michaud. It's the meeting of the Agricultural Trade Union, FNSEA. 2 meetings are on the agenda. The first in Angoulême, about 45 minutes away, where farmers will discuss their financial concerns.
This drought is going to cost us a lot of money. I worked it out yesterday. I must immediately compensate for losses in spring. I need about 40,000 euros. 40,000 euros. And it's clear we don't have that.
But it's not just about money. Michaud is struggling to see how the future will pan out.
The other option is we do nothing. But then there'll be no more breeders in France. Everyone will grow cereal. And we'll go looking for meat in Brazil. When it comes to creating jobs and buying local produce, if we do nothing, it's going to be a disaster. This goes against all environmental policies and economic laws.
At 11:30, the Drought Committee meet. Members include farmers, bank representatives and civil servants. They're trying to find ways to help the breeders. Two hours later, the meeting comes to an end, and no solution has been found. In the afternoon, Michaud returns to Chabanais. Ahead of his second meeting scheduled for the evening, he returns to the fields to make the most of the little grass that remains.
I'll mow a piece of land from a fallow field that belongs to a friend.
This 20-acre area provides hay. Normally, Michaud would never use it, but because the situation is so precarious, He has little choice.
It's not really good quality grass because it wasn't grown to be. It comes from fallow fields. Even so, it's always good to use, especially as cows eat anything. It's better than straw.
Ironically, while Michaud is cutting the grass, it begins to rain.
Unfortunately, this isn't even 2 millimeters of rain. The rainfall only begins to have an impact at about 15 millimeters, and a good watering starts at 30 millimeters of rainfall. Because it hasn't rained and because the winter was very dry, the earth is extremely dry even far below the surface. So when it rains, the water doesn't rise to the surface, and the result is catastrophic.
At 8 p.m, the day's second meeting gets underway. Michaud joins 200 farmers. Many of them had met the French President Nicolas Sarkozy on the 9th of June when he was visiting the area.
We don't have fair prices. I even told our President Sarkozy, we don't care about bonuses. Fair prices, that's what we need. A kilogram of meat for €3, it's unthinkable.
Really? You too? 3 euros?
Of course, it's unthinkable.
He told Sarkozy the other day.
I told him, we must have fair prices. I told Sarkozy.
We must tackle the problem differently.
And he didn't say anything, he just lowered his head.
We're in France, we need fair prices. This isn't Brazil.
It has to stop, otherwise we're just going to go crazy.
It's good weather outside, but we might go in. We can hold outside if you want.
Like Michaud, all the farmers are short of food for their animals. France's National Farmers Union has come to try and help.
Good evening, everyone. It's impossible to find hay anywhere, so this operation is just about finding straw.
The idea consists of buying 30,000 tons of straw from northern France and transporting it to Charente. This would cost about €100 a ton, twice as much as last year. Soon the discussion falls on the commitment made by the national railway company SNCF and how they will transport the straw.
A train like this one, tops, can carry a maximum of 300 tons. So an operation of 30,000 tons means 100 trains. The National Rail Carrier will never put 100 trains at our disposal. Even now they don't have enough train carriages, and already the lines are packed with passengers and freight trains.
3 hours later, the meeting draws to a close, and it's decided the straw will be transported by truck. Michaud's work is far from over, and the drought has already cost farmers in the region €60 million.
Well, our reporter Rabah Zanoun joins us now. Rabah, we saw from your report how people are struggling already. Big problems are already apparent among the farming community. It brings to mind for many people 1976, which was a major drought in France and other European countries too. Is what's happening this year worse than what happened then?
For the moment, the 2011 drought isn't over because the summer isn't over in France. In 1976, to give you a figure, Mark, the water deficit was about 46%. In the spring of 2011, the water deficit is 55%. So the drought is worse in 2011. The spring of 2011 was the warmest since 1900.
Is it going to stay this way? What are the weather forecasters saying?
The meteorologists say a report has just come out, which is called the ClimSec, which was produced by Météo France with the Scientific Council, and it's based on 3 years of data, 1976, 2089 and 2003. And what does it say? It's at the beginning of 2050, 2080, drought will be worse and worse. From 2050, the ground will be drier, and droughts will be worse and longer above all.
So how are farmers beginning to adapt and change to make this work?
It's very difficult to answer this question, especially as I met farmers who were thinking on a day-to-day basis. For them, 2050, 2080 is a very long way away. So it's the state that should look after this, the European Union who should take some measures. And above all, it's a problem of water management. How can we manage water? And indeed, today, the European Union is revising its water management policy and is asking all member states to think about this. A little detail to explain this. In France, we manage water very badly,
So changing the way that rainwater is dealt with, a very interesting thing to consider. You mentioned Europe there. France, of course, often fights the corner of its farmers in Europe. What else is France doing to try to help these farmers who need, basically, to be shown a different way and help to develop different methods of coping?
France does what it has been doing for a long time. It helps, it subsidizes its farmers, but France isn't alone now. France is part of a bloc called the European Union, and this European Union has what's called the Common Agricultural Policy, the CAP, and it cannot help anymore because Brussels says it would be illegal to continue with these subsidies. So France offers fiscal exemption, tax exemption, tax rebates. So we have to really think of the heart of the problem, which is to change French agriculture to make it less water intensive, less productive and more ecological.
Rabah Zanoun, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for watching this Reporters programme. You're watching France 24. Stay with us.